I'm Paul from Trending, Who, What, Where, and When. Today I'll be speaking with Amazon bestseller for more than 10 months running and award-winning author Paul Wilson about his book, Bad Karma, The True Story of a Mexico Trip from Hell. Paul will be joining us from Mission Beach, San Diego, California, USA.
Hi everybody, I'm coming to you from Mission Beach in sunny Southern California in the dead of winter. My name is Paul Wilson, and I've written a book I'd like to introduce you to, Bad Karma, The True Story of a Mexico Trip from Hell. Hope you give it a shot. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll start by asking you to tell our followers what your favorite spots in and around your home in Mission Beach in San Diego, California.
Well, I live in a very small apartment. It's 348 square feet, but it's directly on the beach in Mission Beach. I've been in this apartment for 18 years now. I was born in Hollywood, but raised in San Diego. Spent my entire life within California, and all of that from age 5 in San Diego. And my very favorite spot in this particular area is my beachfront balcony. I built in a nice little kitchen out there and everything. I plumbed gas out there for a barbecue, and I've got a refrigerator and a countertop, and I actually call it La Cocina de Pablo. And so I I rarely use my kitchen for anything other than prepping things. And I cook out there half a dozen times a week. I'm cooking either breakfast, lunch, or dinner out there, and I love it. It's on the second floor, and it's got a panoramic, 180-degree view of the ocean, and it's just such a peaceful place to sit and read and write and think and watch the world go by. I have 6 windows. They all face the ocean, so that's the benefit. I think most places here are they're not like Arizona. Homes that are spread out because we're short on land. They're not making any beachfront real estate and any more beachfront real estate, so you have to kind of take what you get. And I rent here, and I'm one of the very few people that rent here. Everything else has been turned over to vacation rentals, and so the long-term permanent population of Mission Beach is just about 600 people. And summertime, when all the people from Arizona and Nevada and Colorado come in to visit and take over the town, our population swells to 24,000. So we go from 600 to 24,000 for the 14 weeks of high season.
Wow, I didn't realize the population was that small there. I was thinking it was more.
There's anytime you're here, there's quite a few more people than that, but the actual permanent year-round established residents there. I mean, there's a number of students that move in during the school season, from the universities, and so they increase population and everything, but they're not permanent. They're here for 9 months, and they move out, and the vacation renters come in.
Oh boy, I bet you love that.
There's always quite a few more than 600 people here, but only 600 people of us live here permanently all the time.
Well, I love reading Bad Karma, The True Story of a Mexican Trip from Hell. Continuous bad choices leading to continuous bad circumstances taking place in Mexico. This action-packed drama unfolds in an unbelievably interesting story. What inspired you to become a writer and write Bad Karma?
Well, at the time of the trip, I'd never really fancied myself as a writer, but during the trip, so many incredible things were happening that I just felt like it was something so out of this world and just like cosmically being controlled. The kind of the background of the story is that there was 3 of us that were going on this trip, and I had moved into an apartment building in Imperial Beach, the most southwesterly coastal community in the continental United States. There were 14 apartments occupied by 19 surfers, and I was the youngest and probably the dorkiest of the group. And I would was dubbed with the nickname of Polyopters because I was seen as kind of helicoptering around the rest of the guys all the time, trying to fit in with the cool guys. And I got wind that they were going to be making this journey down to mainland Mexico or on a surfing safari. And I thought, hey, this is my ticket. If I can go along on this trip and everything, then I'll be as cool as the rest of them, and I will have surfed mainland Mexico and everything. And once I was locked in to the point of not being able to back out or change plans or anything, I learned that it wasn't the 2 weeks that in Mexico that I was led to believe, but it was going to be 2 months and I had nowhere near enough money. And so I robbed a local supermarket in order to pay my share, and to get provisions. And then then I learned about far as before we left that one of the guys that was kind of the real lead dog at the building and surfing and everything else, he had killed somebody in a manslaughter conviction, and it was a car wreck, and he'd been injured badly, so he'd been they were waiting to confine him until he could get the wires off his jaw and everything, and he had a lot of wounds he had to heal up on. And I was unaware of that he actually, why he'd been in jail and everything, and or why he was going to be going to jail. And so about far as before we left, I learned that he was using me to duck out to Mexico to escape going to jail. Then the third fellow on the trip, actually the guy that's on the cover of the book in front of my old VW bus that we took down there, he just absolutely emotionally destroyed his girlfriend right before we left, and he was sort of a I don't know if you remember Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver, but he was that type of personality where, oh, hello, Mrs. Cleaver, what a mighty fine dress you have on today. In the meantime, he was a snake. And so he destroyed her. We each went down to Mexico on this trip with visions of staying 2 months in paradise and surfing and living under coconut palms and all that. In reality, it was 5 weeks of trying to stay alive, because we learned real quickly that the heavens keep score. And so each of us was punished in direct retribution for what we'd done wrong.
Actually, I was going to ask you about that. Early in the book, you mentioned that a few times, karma's tipping points and hey God, things like that. So you do believe that had the.
Well, I'm a Christian. I believe in God and everything, and I use karma as a loose term for just the heavens keeping score. In fact, because I had done some things that were felonies, I had to wait 10 years for the statute of limitations to expire on myself before I could tell anybody anything about the trip or how I financed it, and that I had taken this felon down to Mexico across the international border. And then I took all the records, receipts, my license plate, everything I could, all artifacts from the trip, and I put them in a cigar box and wrote on the top of it, "Bad karma, surf trip from hell," and stuck it in the attic. And there it sat. And I just pull it out and look at it once in a while. But then by then I had, 10 years later, I had young kids, and I didn't want them to know what a turd their dad had been. And I'd done a lot of growing up and become a much better person, I like to think. And the other two had not learned the errors of their ways, and one of them ended up, the guy who killed somebody ended up being killed, and the guy who dissed his girlfriend, who was real handsome, that's why he got all the most beautiful girlfriends, and he ended up having a tree clip him in the face and tear off part of his face, so he became not so handsome anymore and never dated again. I had lost everything on this trip, which is detailed in the book and everything, just kind of humorous things. Mexican people that were phenomenal. The authorities never gave us any issue at all. We learned the cosmos keeps score, and it kicked our butts.
It does seem like things just kept getting worse and worse as you went forward on the trip.
It was like every day was a different disaster.
In fact, I was surprised at one point, because you were going down the coast, and I thought, how are they going to get from there to where they're trying to get to? I didn't realize there was a huge boat that would take cars across the water there. Even having been there, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, at that time it was leaving from Cabo San Lucas and going to Puerto Vallarta. And after running aground a number of times in Cabo San Lucas, they realized that harbor just wasn't suitable for an ocean-going vessel like that. And so they moved it up to La Paz, a couple 100 miles north of there, which has a deep water harbor. And it's still there today. It trucks back and forth, round trips from La Paz to Puerto Vallarta. And it's supposedly a 12-hour trip, but on our trip, we happened to run through the largest Pacific hurricane in history, Hurricane Norman, and couldn't outrun it because we had been one of those poor ships that ran aground and lost propulsion on one of the engines. And so we couldn't outrun the hurricane and had to pretty much steer right through it. That was one of the daily disasters. So our trip took between 24 and 26 hours instead of 12. And most of that was spent seasick.
That would be a long time to be in a ship like that, a really long time.
It was. We encountered 75-foot seas, and we were in a 550-foot long boat ship. And 75-foot seas is quite an elevator ride, down and up, and side to side. And the whole plumbing system on the ship broke, and so all the contents of the wastewater tanks were flowing up through coming up through all the drains and everything. And it was just, we had about 4 inches of just sewage everywhere on the ship, on the floors and rushing down the alleyways. And oh my God, it was just horrible. Like I say, and anything that could go wrong on this trip was thrown at us.
Then early in you had an early meeting with El Chapo Guzman, and and expanded later to include one of the people that was with you, Ed Moss, aka Moose, interacting with him.
Yeah, we had a chance meeting with him. Had finally given up on our surfing trip, and we're limping our way home. And we had a final, fatal breakdown with the Wonderbus, which was the name for my VW bus, 1DRBUS, the Wonderbus. And excuse me, on the way back, we broke down just north of a little town in Sonora, and actually in Sinaloa, called Wasabi. And we hitchhiked back into town about 20 miles, and we went around. It was a Sunday afternoon in the desert heat, and we walked around trying to find a tow truck that could come tow us off the highway back into town and leave the bus there for safekeeping. In our travels through town, we came across this couple of guys sitting on an old Chevy taxi under a tree and drinking. And so we went up and talked to them, asked them, what's going on in town? Why is everything shut down? Well, it was some sort of Mexican holiday, and it was a siesta time, and what did we need? We said we needed a tow truck, and the Joaquin Guzman, who's 4 months younger than I am, we were both 21 at the time, said, well, I've got some rope in the trunk, why don't we just tow you back? And so we said, okay, sure, and they towed us back. And we ended up getting into a high-speed chase on the way back because we were towing on the freeway. There were 2 lanes each direction with a center divide filled with cactus and stuff he couldn't cross. And he was going real fast, and I was being whipped around like a rag doll at the end of the cord on the end of the thing. The rope was so short, and I was so close to his vehicle that I couldn't see the brake in the trunk. The trunk came back like this and down like that. And an old VW bus, I was sitting right up, like sitting at a desk. It was right in front of me. And I was doing everything I could do to keep from, fishtailing or falling apart or coming loose. And so we got attracted the attention of some federales who took chase. And instead of stopping, he took off and went flying down the road and got up my old odometer, or speedometer rather, used to peg at 80 miles an hour, and we pegged it, and we zip it in and out of cars and traffic, and eventually got away. It dodged the federales, went off on the dirt road and everything. And I was really upset. Understandably, I went running up to the trunk and was about to, get some satisfaction by punching the guys out and everything for going that fast. And he says, wait, and he opens up the trunk, and he's got a trunk full of marijuana. So he said we would have all gone to jail had he stopped. So he couldn't stop. He had to get away. So he was already in the business. He was already transporting, but he was like a mid-level lieutenant at that point. That was back in '78. So by '93, he was very well ensconced as the head of the entire organization. And part of his advancement to build the Wasabi Sinaloa cartel was by virtue of our connection, because Moose helped establish a smuggling ring through the Tijuana to San Diego corridor that it really was one of the things that touched off the original cartel wars down here, all the murders and everything, because Joaquin was infringing on an existing cartel's distribution route.
And Moose was one of the people that was with you on your surfing trip to Mexico.
Yeah, he was the guy. He was the guy who was ducking out on a manslaughter charge.
Tell us about being an Amazon #1 bestseller book. It seemed like you've been on Amazon as a bestseller in the travel sector for about a year.
Yeah, it's great. I tried my darndest. I wasted about 6 months trying to find a publisher or a literary agent to take the work. They all gave me the same story, that men's memoirs don't sell, and adventure travels, it's a very limited audience and all of this. And so finally I just, I got online and I found somebody to teach me how to self-market and self-publish, and went through that whole deal. and did that. And I debuted the book about Christmas time, 2019. And by January 26th, it had reached #1. And surfing, literary travel, travel writing, Mexico travel, and a couple of other ones. Adventure travel was one of the ones, sports travel. And it's been a continuous #1 through today. It's never left not 1 hour out of the #1 ranking that whole time. And it's gone on in Christmas. I don't know exactly how many we sold today, but at Christmas time, we passed the 30,000 copy mark. And we've been, on December 23rd, I signed a film rights option for making a movie out of it. So we're actually having dinner with the producers on Thursday.
Oh, really?
And, to talk about a little bit more business about how this movie's going to be made.
Well, that would be interesting.
It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, as soon as I was so convinced that this was a made for film, made for movie story, that because of the action, the comedy, the moral lessons that are learned through the book, it's just a made for movie story. That about, I guess it's probably 20 years ago, when movie domains and internet domains first came available, the .com thing started, that I reserved the domain names, you know, Bad Karma the movie and badkarmamovie.com, and reserved those. And I've been renewing them every year, waiting to get to the point where I had the time and the money and everything to be able to quit, to sell my business and concentrate on writing the book. And that was about 2 years ago. I sold my business, and then it took about a year plus the wasted time with the trying to get an agent before I debuted the book. And now it's been a #1, and it's just on fire. The audiobook comes out the first week of March.
Oh, I bet that will surprise you too with how many people listen to that, because I know those are getting a lot of traction right now. They're really popular.
Yeah, it's great. It's they're the leading book in my genre is a book called Barbarian Days, A Surfer's Life, and it's by William Finnegan, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winning author. And he and I play back and forth with first place and second, place in different categories and stuff. And he's been out since 2015, so coming up on 6 years now since his book debuted. And I've calculated that I'm going to catch him and pass him in the number of people who have read my book and reviewed it on Amazon by about the middle of May. And so, it's such a nerve. It's really caught fire, and it's just so fun to watch it happen.
You have something like 1,366 customer reviews also on Amazon, which is like large number.
It's up to 1630.
Oh.
It's up to 1635 today.
God.
I checked a little while ago.
Oh.
It's on fire. It's Amazon made it a Amazon Kindle deal of the day back in November. We sold 600 copies that day of Kindle.
I saw that on
version,
Facebook.
and then they're going to do another Kindle deal of the day coming up in March, and another one in April. And so Amazon must think it's something because they're plugging it.
Okay, yeah, that would be a huge help.
Yep, and when the audiobook comes out in March, that's going to be a big boost too. We were lucky enough to secure a guy, Joe Zija, who is a very prominent voice actor. He does a lot of video games and also audiobooks and things, and he's fairly highly sought after and highly regarded, and we were able to secure him. So we're supposed to start receiving chapters later this week.
Yeah, then you'll sell a lot more, that version, in addition to the paperback and the hardcover. Wow.
Yeah. I stumbled into an acquaintance with Andy Weir, the fellow who wrote The Martian, with the movie Matt Damon would start in. And Andy followed the same course as I'm following, pretty much. I mean, I'm just by blind luck of happenstance, I'm following the route he laid the groundwork for. He self-published, put out his audiobook. Somebody contacted me about making a movie out of it. His audiobook went on to be the largest selling audiobook of all time. And he's deep in the 7 and 8 figures in income from the book and the movie rights and everything. And so if I can achieve 1% of the success that Eddie Weir has achieved, I'll be doing cartwheels across the beach.
I couldn't put it down. I just read chapter after chapter. It's just I kept thinking it's going to get better, and then I'll walk away. And I thought it keeps just pulls you in.
Thank you very much. It was actually an easy story to tell because it all happened.
Mhm.
There's nothing made up in there. I kept a lot of the artifacts. This is back when we used to use the Ward's auto record books, and this is the book from that trip. And so I was able to look in there and see the mileage. And then when I converted over from gallons to liters and the specific dates, and so I was able to go back and mark the dates and places and calculate between gas stops what town we were in. So all I did was recreate and memorialize exactly what happened. So it wasn't, I never suffered from writer's block, other than looking for the right word to describe something, but I never had to wonder, where's the story go next, because I lived it.
It also seemed like the people in Mexico treated you really well while you were there, starting with the restaurant you stopped at where they lost their power. Numerous different situations where it seemed like they were really nice.
The people in Mexico were just so wonderful. I would have died a couple of times on this trip without them. I mean, literally, not just figuratively, but there was a couple of times where I was actually near death, that I was rescued by the people down there. And they were the most generous with their time. If they had something, they would give it to you, even if it was to their own detriment. There was experiences like that in the trip that I just thought, and it really opened my eyes, because I grew up. My dad was a very prejudiced, bigoted guy. He'd grown up during the Depression era and working in with the longshoremen up in the San Pedro, Long Beach area. And when the Mexicans would come in, well, they were taking the jobs. So there was a lot of race riots and a lot of animosity between the cultures. And so he had raised us to dislike that whole culture and think that they were all dishonest and they would rob you if they could, and they were all bad guys. And when I went down there, I kind of went down there with that mindset and was really guarded with myself and wondering, gosh, I better make sure I lock the car and hide all my valuables and all that. It turns out that they were 180 degrees from that. They're the most wonderful, giving, just delightful people in the world.
Is there any passage from the book that you would like to read and share with us?
Sure, a funny passage that I thought. This is when I learned about the fact that Moose had killed somebody. Karma's tipping points: strike two, manslaughter. Strike one was me robbing the store. Strike two was manslaughter. And his conversation with my best friend Ed, who went by the nickname of Pedro, and which was short for horn dog, but I'll leave it to you to figure out how he got that. But it says karma tipping point, strike two, manslaughter. I just finished heating up some leftover spaghetti when Pedro burst through the front door. Moose killed someone last year. He dropped it like a bomb. What? It wasn't like he did it on purpose or anything, but yeah, he killed his girlfriend in a car crash. I just found out. Jelly told me. Jelly was the handsome guy that broke this girl's heart. Opters, you remember when we first moved here and he had his jaw wired up? Well, yeah, I knew he'd been in a bad car crash, but the rest of the story is, he was all on pills and ran his car to a tree on Bonita Road. By the way, I went out and visited that tree when I was researching for the book and everything, and it's still there. There's still the scars and little crosses and candles all around it. And so people hit it frequently. He killed his girlfriend instantly and the other two people in the back seat. No, man, they found him guilty of manslaughter last month, and he's supposed to report for confinement tomorrow. He's out on bail. But we're leaving for Mex in the morning. My mind was a blur. You mean he's skipping out? My voice cracked like a prepubescent boy's on out. Yeah, you're his right, and you're his right across the border, Paul. Wow. Harold never used my real name. Nobody ever used real names at the manor. Not around parents, not around girlfriends, not around bosses. This is serious. Struggling to absorb the situation, I slumped backward into the couch and twiddled the sticky pasta with my fork. So what do you do again? Moose killed someone, and now he's using you to split to Mexico. What part of that don't you understand? I went numb. The Tonight Show theme was surrealistic, coming from the old black and white television in my bedroom. A disjointed collection of thoughts bolted through my mind. I realized I'd been holding my breath for who knows how long, watching my best friend's eyes from some sort of sign. I waited for something to break the heavy silence. That's bullshit, Farrell. Why'd they let him stay out of jail all this time? Jelly told me the lawyer got Moose's confinement delayed until the wires came off his jaw and he was eating okay. After, you better pray you don't get caught taking Moose across in the morning, or you're going to jail right along with him. well, what should I do? Boy, do I sound big. I don't know. Whichever way you decide, Moose will effing kill you if you bail out now, and you'll go to jail if you get caught taking them. Moose, but Pharaoh wasn't using kill for its dramatic value. He wasn't too far from the reality with the summary of the predicament I was in. Moose had the physique of a linebacker and the disposition of a rabid pit bull. He was the best guy to have in your corner and the absolute worst to be on the outs with. We all tolerated him because his mere presence in the water kept all the other surfers away from our break. One morning, he broke up statewide surf contests by out front by charging and screaming at each of the contestants until they fled the water. One poor soul stood his ground. Moose bear hugged him, swam to the bottom, and held him there until he nearly drowned. The organizers took down their canopies, packed up their trophies, and that was that. Pharaoh, if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known. Stupid is no excuse for the law, officers. You taught me that, right? My mind was a jumble, and it took a second to interpret. You mean ignorance of the law is no excuse? See, I'm right. You're effed. I started to explain. If I hadn't known Moose was breaking the law by riding with me, with a sigh, I gave up. Pharaoh extended his right hand, grasped my shoulder, and with feigned empathy, hey, what are friends for? So what are you going to do? The die had been cast. My alternatives were unsavory. Yet crystal clear. If I bailed out on Moose Jelly right now, pure and simple, I might as well have started looking for a new place to live. If I gambled sneaking Moose across the border, there was a 50-50 chance we'd make it unnoticed. You can't tell anyone that I know about Moose, okay? You got to keep it quiet. So you're going? We leave in the morning. Satisfied he completed his mission, Pharaoh noticed the camera beside me on the couch. I told him about my visit from Dano and it being stolen, but never uttered a word about the discarded film to his soul. I didn't need the extra guilt trip. No, that deed was all my own, and it nagged at my heart as I finished my now cold spaghetti. The preceding chapter is about my bringing the bad karma on myself. Robbing the supermarket wasn't enough. I did something really lousy with a tourist camera. But that's on my bucket list, is to get another old vintage Volkswagen bus at some point.
Oh, really? Okay. It seemed like after your last experience, that might be something you wouldn't want to revert back.
You know, it's funny because about I think maybe 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I bought another a 67 VW bus and fixed it all up and dolled it up and everything. And I even resurrected the license plate for it, the Wonderbus, and kept that for a number of years. And then when I moved here to the beach, I just I sold it. And wish I'd held on to it, because the value of it at that time was about $1,500, and the value of that same bus today is about $150,000.
Oh.
They have gone up, and they're a collector's item now, and the value is just out of this world.
That means there must not be many of them left.
No, they're fewer and fewer all the time.
And they're probably all in California.
Oh, they're actually there's a ton of them in the United Kingdom. There's a lot of them in Germany and France, and the whole West Coast. And there's actually a very large Midwest, and also Florida. The Eastern Seaboard is very big for VW buses. But yeah, we do have the preponderance of them out here. I've been pulling together the notes and artifacts and doing some interviews and research on the sequel to Bad Karma. And if you read the epilogue of Bad Karma, you kind of know where that's going. It describes how the drug smuggling ring was developed and how it was infiltrated by the DEA. And then also how, kind of what the next 4 or 5 years looked like in our lives following the original trip. And then also I'm working on another book, which is a collection of short stories. And it's kind of in the same vein as Bad Karma, because there's a phenomenon in nature or biology where young males, especially, their frontal lobes aren't fully developed until they're in their 24, 25, 26 years of age. And I refer to that phenomenon as lobal norming. And so the name of the book is Lobal Norming, The Uncertain Future of Primate Change. And kind of a play on the climate change thing and all that. But it's a collection of short stories of dumb stunts kids pull, both my own and other people that I know of. Just kind of a humorous look at the process of young men developing better cognitive and reasoning skills as they get a little bit older, and the dumb things they try to pull off when they're not.
Well, those sound interesting. When will those be finished?
Oh, good grief. Right now with working on the movie and the audiobook and everything, it's definitely on the back burner.
Okay.
But they say that the best way to sell a book is to write another one. So I'm
I've heard that.
hoping to follow that same course.
Yeah.
Following the Andy Weir roadmap, who did The Martian, he wrote that and was fabulously successful. And he's written a couple of things since that didn't quite, they weren't bombs, but they didn't enjoy the same success. And so, like I say, if Bad Karma makes 1% of what Andy did on The Martian, the whole goal was I didn't want to die without telling the story to my kid, and also now that it's become very successful, leaving them it'll live on.
Would you share with us any advice you would have for new writers?
Trust your gut. One thing that really honed my writing was to get involved in a writer's critique group that I had already written and actually published my book before I got involved in a writer's critique group. And I wish I had done that prior to actually pulling the trigger on publishing, because I learned a lot of things, and getting the feedback of, there's a group of a half dozen people, and they're all accomplished authors. And we would read an excerpt from each other's work each week and then critique it. And getting the honest, direct, ugly truth about things you're doing and things you could change in your writing style and everything really enabled me to go back through. And I probably made 1,000 very minor changes in the book, nothing substantial as far as the storyline or anything, or the dates and times and figures, but minor things to correct my use of the English language so that it reads much better now than it did. I would just advise people that if they're interested in writing, get involved in a local writers group. There's thousands of them. Please visit my website, www.badkarmabook.com. I reserved that domain about 15 years ago, so I've had time to set it up. And then please, if you read the book and enjoy it, or however you feel about it, I'd enjoy having you let me know, either via direct message to my website or through a review on Amazon. The reviews on Amazon, the ratings there, they're like gold to a debut author. And I read every one of them, I value every one of them. And so know that your words and comments are being heard.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Paul. I've enjoyed you very much as well. Thank you.